fly the 50. Tell me what you think about the aircraft's performance and how it fits in from a client's perspective as they're moving up from different aircraft that I was just talking about, like how that will apply to them and flying.
Yeah, so I had the opportunity to fly it. It's a completely unique aircraft. Diamond has taken something that they usually don't do with their line of aircraft, which they saved the retractable gear and the high performance stuff for their twins. And they have now this aircraft that is going to allow people who are training in similar models or maybe haven't had the experience in a higher performance or a complex aircraft, and it gives them an aircraft that they can train in that's not going to be overcomplicated, and it's going to be something they can pick up easily, and it makes sense. So I think that's where they're going to really shine in that sense.
So you have about 2,000 hours now in training aircraft?
Yeah.
About flying? You've flown the 62 quite a bit. It's a 62 fuselage on a single engine aircraft, right? Mm-hmm. It's a new engine for Diamond. The Continental V6 is a new variant of a Jet A burning engine. So we haven't seen that yet. All the rest of their aircraft either have Continental CD135s or their own variant of an Austro.
Yeah.
What do you think about the engine? I thought it was quite smooth when they flew it, but from a pilot's perspective and from somebody who spent a lot of time in Diamonds, particularly training and flying and teaching students how to fly in it, compare it to the 60 too. Tell me what you think about how it operates and how it performs.
It's quite obviously the fuselage from the 62. You're sitting in it, and if you were kind of just to look at the panel, you wouldn't really notice a difference besides there'd be two throttle levers in the 62 versus the 50. So from that perspective, when you're sitting in the plane, you can't tell the difference. That's actually a really good thing because the cockpit design in the 62 is really, really pilot friendly.
So well laid out.
Yeah, when the pilots are sitting in there, everything's ergonomical, it's comfortable. It's something you don't mind sitting in for longer than 3 hours. I mean, some of these light general aviation planes, you sit in there for 4 hours and you want to get out. And in the 62 and now the 50 fuselage is something that you can comfortably take you, family, passengers, or your flight instructor, and you can go longer distances and basically arrive comfortable. So that's kind of a pro. In terms of the engine itself, it's, again, different. They're doing something new here. It's a V6 Continental, and it feels like a big engine. You start it, and it has a really nice sound, and also just looking at the stance of the aircraft, it has that long nose on it. It kind of almost looks like a TBM or something like a Pilatus, where you look and you think, well, what's under the hood of that thing? And when you open it up, it's quite beautiful. So
great.
I liked it a lot. It was
Great
really, really smooth. And the power was nice. We flew it, and it was probably 10 degrees over standard temperature. And we had 3 people in there, full fuel, and it was climbing just as good as anything else out there. So I liked it a lot.
What do you think the ideal client? We train a lot of clients from all different walks of life, all different types of aircraft that come out of all different aviation experiences. Let's talk about somebody that is, coming out of a 40NG, has, maybe they have 150 hours of total flight time, and they have the capability and the want and the need, especially flying in the Northeast. That plane's got TKS in it, right? So you can fly into known ice. The aircraft itself is very capable, right? Retractable gear. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff going on there. What do you think after flying it? How do you think a client with about 150 hours and a private and instrument rating, how would they transition to that aircraft? What is your opinion from an instructor's point of view? What do you think about that?
They shouldn't have much of a problem, and it simply comes down to the FADEC system. You don't have to manage anything. You have a single lever. That lever is not even attached to anything in the engine. It's just basically a computer telling the computer what power setting you want to put it at, and it does it for you. So from someone who might not have the experience of operating complex high-performance engines, but wants something that has, we talked about, with TKS system, and you want to use the aircraft its full capability, that transition is not going to be as difficult as it might be in some historically previous aircraft. So I think between the FADEC system and the simplicity of the gear design, and also it's a pretty fast plane, but it has double-slotted flaps on it. Right? So those flaps, using them, I was out there flying it, and you could feel like the stall speed really, really comes down. It allows for quite lower approach speeds, and approach speeds around 80 knots to 90 knots, something that is not going to be far off from your general aviation trainer. So it's not like you're going to be worried about, can I land this thing? How fast am I going to be going? Do I need a bunch of runway? With that flap design, it slows the plane down, and the slower you are during landing, the safer it is. That's why they designed trainer aircraft that way. So they've taken that into consideration when building aircraft.
So very similar to the rest of the Diamonds then, the fleet.
Yeah. Especially some of these little, yeah.
Obviously, we didn't have it long enough. It was here for 2 days, and we didn't get to see full maintenance. We were able to pull some cowlings off and take a look at some of the other, construction components of the aircraft, how it was assembled. Obviously, very much similarly, we're a maintenance center as well, so the Diamond products, they all kind of work off the same premises and concepts. You end up with similar maintenance procedures and intervals. This aircraft will also be a 100-hour interval for maintenance cycles, which, as we see in the 62s, and the 42s and the DA50 RGs, all of those aircraft in that diesel product line and the Jet A burning product line, they don't require really almost any maintenance in between the 100-hour intervals. I mean, we fly DA50 RGs in the school fleet 153 hours a month. For the average person who's not run a flight school, what that means to you is, as on a gas burning, a low lead burning plane with an IL-360 like the DA40 180 has, similar engine into a 172 like an XP. These engines require 50-hour services, they require 100-hour services. There's just much more maintenance, revolving around the aircraft itself. We have many clients who have DA62s who fly 200 hours plus a year. We see them twice a year. They have very little phone calls about maintenance. They are a high-performance machine, in my opinion, I think, especially for what we see with the use and the way clients fly them. They're a high-performance machine with very little downtime for maintenance, and they're just not in the shop a lot. You get all of the performance characteristics of the sports car without the sports car maintenance and the sports car downtimes, obviously.
Sports car headaches.
Yeah, and like everything in aviation, wherever you are in aviation, whether it be all the way in commercial aviation flying an airliner or in general aviation where we are, dispatch reliability is I think the key, and I think a lot of clients will be excited to see that we don't see this being any more of a maintenance than anything else. And for a performance piece of machinery that can actually take you somewhere with reasonable speeds, low fuel burn output, it's more environmentally friendly, has a great ramp presence, is very customizable, can give you all of the features that you want that any of the competitors on the market offer, but it also gives you all the performance opportunities. I think it's going to be a great spot in their product line that they have not offered, and I think a lot of clients are going to really enjoy it.
I think Continental's done a good job with this engine. It's definitely, the whole V design is kind of cool, because you got a lot of horizontally opposed engines out there in the market, and with the Astros, you have the inline fours. But I'm kind of looking forward to see, a couple years from now, seeing where this engine goes, and I have really high hopes for it. So I attribute that, the reliability of this engine to one simple thing. It's the fuel source. You're burning jet fuel, and how many times when you've gone out to fly have you been limited with your ignition system in a traditional aircraft? So you're fouling plugs, your magnetos are mistimed, or something along that nature where you have to stop the flight. When you're burning jet fuel, it's kind of one of those things you don't have to worry about. So I think the dispatch reliability is attributed to the fuel burns.
Push button start versus
Push
magnetos.
button start, yeah.
Much simpler. Well, they're car engines, right? So
Yeah.
they're based off variations of car engines. Dual ECUs, extremely safe. If the ECU, as we know, when we have issues with even our own aircraft in
Completely
school,
redundant.
everything's redundant. If there's an ECU failure, it's not up to the owner, which is a lot of aircraft leaves the owner up to a lot of maintenance things that they're just not trained for. We do a lot of cursory discussion, right, in training as far as maintenance stuff. They understand what types of inspections need to be done in the aircraft, what type of engines in the aircraft, propellers, etc. But what they don't get out of it is when this breaks, what does it actually mean? When it runs rough, what does that actually mean to me? We do a lot of work teaching clients how to do that, but I think with this engine, they're not going to have really any concerns. If there's problems, they get ECU failures, they'll bring it to a shop like Take Flight. We can plug it into a diagnostics port. We can download the data. We can give you feedback on what's happening and get you back out flying usually relatively quickly, because generally what we find are very small items, sensors and small things that would ever actually be a problem. What type of owner do you see operating this aircraft? You have experience with a lot of people that come in for 5-day multi-courses that we do, or other types of accelerated training. Like what kind of what they own everything, right? They own every manufacturer of aircraft that you can think of out there. We see them all types. Which ones do you think would fit the mold for this type of aircraft?
I think ideally you'd want your freshly rated instrument pilot.
Okay.
That's going to be someone who's capable and proficient in flying in the National Airspace System and getting that plane up to altitude, using the turbochargers, flying cross countries, and having a mission where you could, for the customer that has that 2-hour car drive that they absolutely resent, that could turn into 30-20 minute flight. Destinations like Myrtle Beach, Canada, at least in the East Coast. We're up in New York.
Even going to Florida.
Even Maine, even Florida. That's one stop on the way down. Versus, some of the airline routes are not so fun these days. So
you can leave at your own time and convenience, which is the whole idea.
and it's capable. You don't need, talked about this before, you want an airplane that can take you places, but you don't want to be limited in where you can go. So the aircraft does have good short field performance, so you don't have to worry about bringing it to some busy, expensive airstrip. You can bring it to your, your grandmother's, 3,000 foot strip comfortably, and not buy the $8 gallon fuel.
So what about a client who currently has a high performance single engine aircraft who is looking for something different, thinks it's interesting to have their retractable gear. They're used to a system with the G1000 and NXI, has a similar autopilot. The DA50 also has the auto wing leveling, has a lot of those features that a lot of other aircraft on the market are, already have. Diamond has not traditionally had all of those features on all the aircraft, although they continue to add them in as they evolve the platforms. How do you think an individual like that will transition to this aircraft?
There's going to be a lot of similar systems. So, one Garmin system to another, while sometimes its actual layout might be different, its functionality is always the same. So when you're going from one aircraft to another, a lot of those Garmin systems simply are repurposed for a different model of aircraft. In fact, most of the autoplats are all the same. The GFC 700 has been reliable for years now. So I don't see a problem with people who maybe have high performance singles coming into this aircraft and seeing themselves lost.